Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and Eli Crane just lays the smackdown on Representative Garcia so much that he might be reconsidering an upcoming run for a higher office. Let's dive in.
In order to actually get more funds for their tax cut program, they need to slash trillions. And where are they going to do that? Well, they've started. The Department of Education, the Department of Labor, Veterans Benefits, USAID, and eventually Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Right now, as we know, Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, is trying to destroy USAID with his Doge team. Now, this is the agency we know that distributes foreign aid, but that's just step one of their plan. Now, of course, we know they're going after the Department of Education. And here's an article from the Washington Post as well. Trump preps order to dismantle the Department of Education as Doge probes data. Now, let me just begin by saying that their mission is to destroy federal agencies like the Department of Ed, to then save money and then transfer that wealth to Elon Musk, his companies, and their billionaire friends through a massive tax cut. I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Crane from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to get some therapy dogs in here for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle?
We could ask Mr. Raskin's shrink to...
I'm worried about their mental stability. You know, I think it's funny, Mr. Chairman, when I hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle whining and complaining.
Those are insults, to be clear.
Elon Musk. Excuse me, this is my time, thanks. Elon Musk and, you know, how much money he donated to President Trump. Yet I don't recall the same outrage when, you know, billionaires on their side of the aisle like Mark Zuckerberg, George Soros, you know, or any of the other ones that were donating massive sums of money to their side of the aisle. Mr. Resch, I want to start with you real quick. I read something you stated in your testimony. You said, rather than a bloated bureaucracy, we face a workforce stretched too thin, forced to oversee an increasingly complex web of outsourced operation with limited personnel and resources. Is that correct? Did you say that in your testimony, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to read you a list of priorities over at USAID right now, one of the agencies that Elon Musk, who's triggered my colleagues on the left so much, the Agency for International Development, which had a budget of over $40 billion in fiscal year 2023. This is not a exhaustive list. It's a very small list, but $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terror organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Have you ever ran a large organization or a small business?
No, I have not.
I just find it interesting that we bring in a governor of one of the United States who has actually run a state to talk about all the cuts, the elimination of fraud, waste, and abuse, and how she's got her state high-performing and made a bunch of changes so that they actually have a surplus. And my Democrat colleagues bring in a professor who's never run a large organization, never run a small business, and therefore has really no idea what it's like to deal with the consequences of out-of-control spending and inefficiencies. Does that strike anybody else in the room as odd?
Unfortunately, Mr. Crane, no, that doesn't sound odd to me. Not because it makes sense, absolutely not. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to have a government run by experts. It does make sense for a government to have experts nearby that constantly give them extra advice here and there. This is the data set that we've looked at. Here's what we recommend. You don't want the experts running things because every now and then there's a good chance that they're missing a key plot point. Every now and then they miss something that can be attributed to human error. And that's why the Republican Party, more often than not, has been the party of logistics. All right, the people who work in the few factories that I've been a part of, pretty much all the logistical people ended up voting Republican. And all the people who didn't really understand what was going on tended to vote Democrat. That is, both the salespeople and other members, other sort of worker bees. But that's starting to change because the worker bees are now listening to podcasts. They're starting to do their own research, and they're realizing that what the Democrats say doesn't really add up. They're also starting to realize that, hey, maybe, just maybe, we've got a huge problem with our deficits and a huge problem with our debt. And as people grow up, they start realizing that, hey, you want to either leave a legacy or you want to leave something to your own children. And when you're leaving your children a mountain of debt, well, that's going to weigh on you. But unfortunately, the Democrat Party used to be the party of the common man. But ever since Woodrow Wilson, the Democrat Party has been the decider of what's good for the common man. See, Woodrow Wilson was the first political scientist to get to the White House. His own theories were essentially that the average person doesn't really know what's in their best interest, therefore a government should be run by highly educated bureaucrats. Sounds like a good idea, kind of like, all the other leftist nonsense that gets spewed from universities and academia. But to quote Reagan, liberals just know so much that isn't so. People who actually understand logistics are much better at actually running the U.S. government, particularly when I think Kristi Noem is the person that Eli Crane's referencing, but it might have been another female Republican governor, but that's the first one that comes to my mind. And so she's actually had to run a state, and running a rural state like that actually requires a whole lot of extra knowledge because you've got to understand the ins and outs of farming. You've got to understand the ins and outs of potential oil extraction and other mineral wealth. South Dakota also has to deal with the federal government for a lot of reasons, including Black Hills Management and the Black Hills National Forest area. So that actually requires an extra couple of steps of government that a whole bunch of eastern blue states don't really have. And so that usually gives Republicans a leg up, but I'm getting off in the weeds, but it's time to go into a new direction with this. Remember, Representative Garcia here has his eyes on higher office. His name has been tapped a couple of times to run for president in 2028, and it's because he's male and he's Latino. Not to mention that he's pretty good at rhetoric. He hit all the right notes, which I hate to admit, but that's the reality of the situation. I'm never going to take away credit from someone that I feel doesn't deserve it. And when you are pretty good at rhetoric, I like at least listening to that person because usually you could figure out what they're actually wanting. Right now, there is a power vacuum going on in the Democrat Party. And there's actually been a passing of a couple of major party heads in the Democrat Congressional Caucus. And Garcia is looking to leverage his current position for more power. So that means more rhetoric. If he gets one of these leadership positions, that means that he's going to be put into a higher spotlight and might help him run for president. And after all, the current people that are being tapped with slightly higher name recognition, AOC, Tim Walz, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, and Jasmine Crockett. Granted, if you combine all five of them, you might get enough content for an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos. But this is what is interesting to me. House Democrat Caucus Chair Peter Aguilar plans to schedule a vote for the position June 21st, according to guidance he sent to colleagues earlier this week. And the position that they're looking for is the House ranking member of the Oversight Committee. This is an unusually powerful position in Congress, and so it either means Garcia is looking to push more for an agenda through traditional channels in Congress, or he's wanting to currently leverage his position because he's eyeing this before June 24th, and I'm filming this as of June 4th, so about 20 days. So this is really interesting to me to hear Representative Garcia start piping up a little bit more right before this major vote. So he's either looking for a higher congressional office within his own party, or he's looking for president. And remember the five people that I just mentioned? Yeah, he probably has a better chance than all of them. Because remember, the current Democrat Party is looking for someone who is positively masculine, male, and it isn't really a wuss. Tim Walz looks like a wuss. Gavin Newsom, he might look like a Kennedy, but it looks like Tarzan plays like Jane. That's what's probably going to happen in the caucuses for president in 2028. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But in the meantime, we've got to be talking about actually cutting back government bloat, dealing with waste, fraud, and abuse, and Representative Garcia is out here trying to fight against that. Never forget that the Democrat Party loves their bloated bureaucracy because they think deep down that their experts know better than the people who have actually had to deal with actual logistics at a state level. I'm sorry, folks, there's a clear difference between the way Republicans govern and the way Democrats, because typically, Democrats just can't govern. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.